Okay, for stage 2, so this is about autonomy versus shame and doubt. This stage occurs between the ages of 18 months to around age of 2 to 3 years old. Okay. So according to Erikson, children at this age are focused on developing a greater sense of self-control. The major question among toddlers is, can I do things myself or am I reliant on the help of others? So once they are able to surpass this stage, they'll develop the basic virtue of will. Important event or events, toilet toilet train toilet training. Now, gaining a sense of personal control over the world is important as this stage of development. Children at this age are becoming increasingly independent and want to gain more control over what they do and how they do it. So there are a number of different tasks that are always important during the autonomy versus shame and doubt stage of development. One is toilet training. So this plays a major role. Learning to control one's body functions leads to feeling of control and sense of independence rather. Other important events include gaining more control over food choices, toy preferences, and clothing selection. Now, kids in this stage of development often feel the need to do things independently. So, such as picking out what they will wear each day, putting on their own clothes, and deciding what they will eat. So, while this can often be frustrating for parents and caregivers, this is an important part of developing a sense of self-control and personal autonomy among toddlers. So, children who successfully complete this stage feel secure and confident. So while those who do not are left with a sense of inadequacy and self-doubt. Now, this stage also serves as an important building block for future development. Now, kids who have confidence in their skills are more likely to succeed in subsequent tasks such as mastering social, academic, and other skill. So what can parents do to encourage success? So there are numbers of things that parents can do in order to foster success during this stage of psychosocial development. One is providing opportunities for children to be independent, allow them to make food, clothing, toy choices, and provide reassurance that they have done a good job. So it's important for parents, to give praises. Very good, good job, you did it, something like that. So be supportive also during potty training, but not punitive for accidents. Offer safe outlets where children are able to play independently with the support and guidance of trusted caregiver. So let's proceed with the third stage. So this is among preschoolers, and this is about initiative versus guilt. So during the initiative versus guilt stage, children begin to assert their power and control over the world through directing play and other social interaction. So the major question among preschoolers goes like, am I good or bad? And then once they surpass this stage, the basic virtue they learn is purpose. So they have now the purpose. Important events. This is an exploration or play stage for preschoolers. What do we mean by initiative? Within the context of Erikson's theory, initiative is a truly freely sense of enterprise manifested at the societal level in a society's economic structure and endeavor. In practice, this looks like the enthusiastic desire to attempt new tasks, join or come up with activities with friends, and use new skills in play. So the child begins to learn that they can exert power over themselves and the world. So, how about the benefits of initiative? Children who develop initiative are eager to try new activities and experiences without excessive fear of failure. So, they learn what they can and cannot control. When they do make mistakes, they don't feel guilty. So, they understand that they just need to try again. By trying things on their own and exploring their own abilities, they can develop ambition and direction. Now, how do kids develop initiative? So at this stage, play and imagination take on an important role. So being given the freedom and encouragement to play helps a child feel excited about exercising some control over what they're doing. Now, how do we define or how did Erikson define guilt? Guilt is shame over failing to complete a task successfully. Now, provoking irritation in adults, otherwise feeling embarrassed over attempting something. Children who experience guilt interpret mistakes as a sign of personal failure and feel that they are somehow bad. So a child who feels more guilt than initiative at this stage learns to resist trying new things for fear of failing. So since they are afraid of failing, they will not try, no? Hindi sila magta-try. And then success in this stage relies on a healthy balance between initiative and guilt. Now, initiative leads to a sense of purpose and can help develop leadership skills. Failure, on the other hand, results in guilt. Now, most importantly, kids who don't develop initiative at this stage may become fearful of trying new things. Now, when they do direct efforts towards something, they may feel that they're doing something wrong. Now, when caregivers stifle efforts to engage in physical and imaginative play, however, children begin to feel that their self initiated efforts are a source of embarrassment. Now, for the fourth stage, this is industry versus inferiority, and this is experience among our grade schoolers. The stage occurs during childhood between the ages of approximately 6 and 11. Okay? The major question among them is how can I be good? And then as they pass through this stage, the basic virtue that they'll be able to learn is competence. And now this starts the important event, and this happens in school. Okay? Now, according to Erikson's theory, people progress through a series of stages as they develop and grow. Unlike many other developmental theories, Erikson's addresses changes that occur across the entire lifespan from birth to death. Psychosocial theory does not focus on the obvious physical changes that occur as children grow up, but rather on the social-emotional factors that influence an individual's psychological growth. At each point in development, people cope with psychosocial crisis. Now, in order to resolve this crisis, children and adults are faced with mastering the developmental task primarily to that stage. If this skill is successfully achieved, it leads to an ability that contributes to lifelong well-being. For example, achieving trust is the primary task of the very first stage of development. It is an ability that contributes to emotional health. However, can result in social and emotional struggles that last a lifetime. So, what exactly happens during the industry versus inferiority stage? What factors contribute to overall success at this point in development? What are some of the major events that contribute to psychosocial growth? Now, in here, the question is, how can parents and teachers, no, especially you future teachers, foster success during the industry versus inferiority stage? At this stage, it's necessary for both parents and teachers to offer support and encouragement. Okay? However, adults should be careful not to equate achievement with acceptance and love. Unconditional love and support from adults can help all children through this stage, but particularly those who may struggle with feelings of inferiority. Children who are overpraised, on the other hand, might develop a sense of arrogance. Clearly, balance plays a major role at this point in development. So parents can help kids develop a sense of realistic competence by avoiding excessive praise and rewards, encouraging efforts rather than outcome, and helping kids develop a growth mindset. Even if children struggle in some areas of school, encouraging kids in areas in which they excel can help foster feelings of competence and achievements. For example, maybe the best way to visualize how the industry versus inferiority stage might impact a child is to look at an example. So imagine two children in the same grade class. No, for example, one student finds science lesson difficult, but her parents are willing to help her each night with her homework. So she also asks the teacher for help and starts to receive encouragement and praise for her efforts. Now, here comes another student who also struggles with science, but his parents are uninterested in assisting him with his nightly homework. So he feels bad about the poor grades he receives on his science assignments, but is not sure what to do about the situation. So his teacher is critical of his work, but does not offer any extra assistance or advice. So eventually, this student just gives up and his grades become even worse. So while both children struggled with this aspect of school, the first student received the support and encouragement she needed to overcome these difficulties and still build a sense of mastery. But the second student lacked the social and emotional encouragement he needed. So in this area, the first student will likely develop a sense of industry where the second student will be left with feelings of inferiority. So you see how important the roles of the parents and the teachers are. So the support, no? So you see how the two students are, or how the two students differ now. So let's proceed with the fifth stage. So identity versus role confusion. Now, this stage occurs during adolescence between the ages of approximately 12 and 18. So during this stage, adolescents explore their independence and develop a sense of self. So according to Erikson, people progress through a series of stages as they grow and change throughout life. So during each stage, everyone faces a developmental conflict, and that must be resolved to successfully develop the primary virtue of that stage. So Erikson was interested in how social interaction and relationships affect development and growth. So the major question among teenagers is, who am I? Okay. Now the basic virtue here is fidelity. Okay. And important events, social relationships. So how do we define identity and role confusion? As they transition from, or as they jump into this stage, no, from childhood to adulthood, teenagers may begin to feel confused or insecure about themselves and how they fit into society. So, as they seek to establish a sense of self, teenagers may experience or may experiment with different roles, activities, behaviors. And according to Erikson, this is important to the process of forming a strong identity and developing a sense of direction in life. So one of the main elements of Erikson's psychosocial stage theory is the development of ego identity. So this is the conscious sense of self that we develop through social interaction, which is constantly changing due to new experiences and information we acquire in our daily interactions with others. Now, what do we mean by identity? So he defines, or Erikson defines, identity as a fundamental organizing principle which develops constantly throughout the lifespan. So identity involves the experiences, relationships, beliefs, values, and memories that make up a person's subjective sense of self. So this helps create a continuous self-image that remains fairly constant even as a new aspects of the self are developed or strengthened over time. Now, identity provides self-sameness. So when we say self-sameness, so it's a sense of continuity within the self and interaction with others. Uniqueness, so this is a frame to differentiate between self and interaction with others. Then we have the psychosocial development. So this is mental and physical health for adolescents. Now, during the identity versus role confusion stage, the conflict is centered on developing a personal identity. Successfully completing this stage leads to a strong sense of self that will remain throughout life. Some more recent theories have focused, guys, on the importance of social identity and how those identities and the intersection of those identities influence the development of individual identity and roles. So one such theory is known as the Big Eight, and it describes socially constructed identities that are defined by factors including social, physical, or mental characteristics. So some examples of social identities include gender identity, race, sexual orientation, religion, spirituality, ability, socioeconomic status, and nationality. Now, let's proceed to the sixth stage. This is about intimacy versus isolation. Now, this stage takes place during young adulthood between the ages of approximately 19 and 40. Now, the major conflict at this stage of life centers on forming intimate, loving relationships with other people. Success at this stage leads to fulfilling relationships. So, struggling at this stage, on the other hand, can result in feelings of loneliness and isolation. Now, the major question among young adults is, will I be loved or will I be alone? So, the basic virtue here is love. And important events is romantic relationships. Now, Erikson believed that it was vital to develop close, committed relationships with other people as people enter adulthood. So these emotionally intimate relationships plays a critical role in a person's emotional well-being. So while the word intimacy is closely associated with sex for many, it encompasses much more. Okay, so Erikson described intimate relationships as those characterized by closeness, honesty, and love. So not just sex. Romantic and sexual relationships can be an important part of this stage of life, but intimacy is more about having close and loving relationships. And this includes romantic partners, but it can also encompass close, enduring friendships with people outside of your family. Now, how do we deal with isolation? Struggling in this stage of life can result in loneliness and isolation. So adults who struggle with this stage experience few or no friendships, lack of intimacy, lack of relationships, poor romantic relationships, weak social support. So those are the consequences of isolation. Now we'll move to the seventh stage, and that's generativity versus stagnation. This stage takes place during middle adulthood, so between the approximate ages of 40 and 65. During this stage, middle-aged adults strive to create or nurture things that will outlast them, sometimes by parenting children or fostering positive changes that benefit others, contributing to society, and doing things to promote future generations are important needs at the generativity versus stagnation stage of development. So it's important to note that life events at this stage tend to be less age specific than they are during early and late stage life. So the major events that contribute to this stage are marriage, work, child rearing, so can occur at any point during the broad span of middle adulthood. So, how do we define generativity and stagnation? For us to understand this stage, it's helpful to know that the terms generativity and stagnation means first, generativity. This refers to making your mark on the world by caring for others, as well as through creating and accomplishing things that make the world a better place. So, key characteristics of generativity include developing relationships with family, making commitments to other people, mentoring others, contributing to the next generation. These sorts of actions are frequently realized through having and raising children. So those who are successful during this phase feel that they're contributing to the world by being active in their home and community. Now, when we say stagnation, guys, so stagnation refers to the failure to find a way to contribute. That's being stagnant. So Stagnant individuals may feel disconnected or uninvolved with their community or with society as a whole. And some characteristics of stagnation include being self centered, failing to get involved with others, not taking an interest in productivity, no efforts to improve the self, placing one's concerns above all else. Now, the last stage is integrity versus despair. So, what do we mean by integrity and despair? So, when we say integrity, this refers to a person's ability to look back on their life with a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. So, characteristics of integrity may include acceptance, a sense of wholeness, a sense of completeness, lack of regret, feeling at peace, a sense of success, feeling of wisdom and acceptance. Now, when we say despair, so this refers to looking back on life with feelings of regret, shame, or disappointment. Characteristics of despair include bitterness, regret, feeling that life was wasted, feeling unproductive, depression, hopelessness. I rather hopelessness. Now, guys, the integrity versus despair stage begins as the aging adult begins to tackle the problem of his or her mortality. So, the onset of this stage is often triggered by life events such as retirement, the loss of a spouse, the loss of friends and acquaintances, facing a terminal illness, and other changes to major roles in life. So during the integrity versus despair stage, people reflect back on their life, on the life they have lived, and come away with either a sense of fulfillment from a life well lived or a sense of regret and despair over a life misspent. Okay? So these are the 8 stages of psychosocial development under Erikson's theory. Now, maybe next meeting we'll do the sharing. So, are you for continuity or discontinuity? And then you have to defend your answer. You also cite a personal experience to support your answer. So, we'll go back to this sharing. But the last issue on human development is stability versus change. So when we say stable, being stable, so first experience has made us. But when we say change, first experience develops us into someone different from who were at an earlier point in development. So stability implies personality traits present during infancy endure throughout the lifespan. Now, contrary or in contrast, change theories argue that personalities are modified by interactions with family, experiences at school, and acculturation. Now, this capacity for change is called plasticity. For example, Ruther in 1981 discovered that somber babies living in understaffed orphanages often become cheerful and affectionate when placed in socially stimulating adaptive homes. Okay. Um Also with this one, no, so we're going to share some experiences that help you change to be stable from a first experience. For example, poverty, abuse, bullying, etc.